So Arjuna is a bit confused, and he's saying, why are you telling me two things? He's saying, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then you recommend work with devotion, because Krishna was talking about that in 4th chapter. He said there are 3 kinds of work. There's karma, vikarma, and akarma. Karma being that work which is allowed according to Vedic injunction, vikarma that which is forbidden, and then akarma meaning transcendental work, work in devotion, actually. So Arjuna was somewhat confused by these 2 principles. On the one hand, that one should renounce all kinds of work which are intended for sense gratification, but at the same time, Krishna is emphasizing work in devotion. So Arjuna was thinking that actually, if we stop the work for sense gratification, then we should stop all the activities. But if we're working in devotion, then how is the activity stopped? So Arjuna is somewhat confused. And this point actually is very important to understand Arjuna's confusion so we can understand this chapter. Arjuna was thinking that once Krishna said you give up the results of work, Arjuna was thinking, oh, you have to give up the work. And then Krishna was talking in 4th chapter about walking in devotion. So therefore he was thinking this renunciation in knowledge. That's what Krishna was describing. If you're knowledge, then in your knowledge, you renounce the fruits of your action. So this is when Krishna was saying give up activity, Arjuna was thinking that Krishna means to give up all kinds of activity for sense gratification, which is true, we should. That is to perform renounce work in knowledge. But then also Krishna has recommended work with devotion. So Arjuna has not understood how these 2 are linked. So we've discussed that before, actually. That in the beginning, one should work for purification, and when purification is attained, then one can give up activity. So that's what we're coming to in this latter part of there's only 29 verses in this chapter. So we're all coming past the middle, but it's actually a very important discussion here about how through one's work, one can come to the understanding of the supersoul, and through that one can attain liberation by focusing on the supersoul. So that is the context of this verse. And then we were seeing in the verses from 7 to 12, how Krishna was talking about working in that nishkam karma, working in the renounced spirit. Krishna was talking about that quite a lot. That is a very important thing, actually, because as devotees, we also have to work in the renounced spirit. We should do our devotion, but not worry so much about what the result will be, because that's up to Krishna. So this principle of renounced work is very important, even for devotees. And Prabhupada is discussing it a lot. Krishna is discussing it a lot. Prabhupada is discussing a lot in the purports in Bhagavad Gita, first 6 chapters, especially. But it comes up in other places as well. It's one of the main principles that Krishna discusses in the Bhagavad Gita, that we should be renounced, we should perform renounced work. We shouldn't get tied up in this principle of trying to enjoy the material nature, working for sense gratification. Krishna was saying that the person who wants to do that is less intelligent. So this is the context of the discussion. And if one works in this way, if one works in a renounced spirit, then one can actually come to the platform of understanding the supersoul. And that is actually what we're discussing here, the supersoul. I want to show one picture, actually, Kirtika. Can you give permission that I can share something?
Yes, Prabhuji. You can share it. I have.
Okay, I can share. So I hope everyone can see this photograph. This comes in the Bhagavad Gita's, actually. So this is what's being described in this verse. This person, if you can see my pointer, this is the devotee who's looking at the situation. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision. So what have we got? We've got learned and gentle Brahmana. And he said, I don't know how clear it is on your screen there, but you can see the supersoul in his heart.
Yes.
Yes. And then we have a cow. So the cow here, the supersoul's in the heart also. And then we have an elephant. There's 2 here actually, but they're only shown the supersoul in one of them. And then there is the dog and the dog eater, the outcast, like this. So in every case, this learned and gentle sage, this humble sage rather, can see that the super soul is there in everybody's heart. And then also, this is actually the situation that the learned sage can actually see. But not only is the super soul there in the heart of every living entity, but also there's the spirit soul. So this is a painting which has been done on the basis of what's explained in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, that the body is considered to be like a tree. And there are two entities within the tree. One is the ordinary living entity, the jiva soul, and the other one is Krishna's plenary expansion as the super soul. So we can see here that the jiva is trying to enjoy the fruits of the tree, different activities of sense gratification, and the super soul is simply watching his friend. So these two, it's good to keep these two pictures in mind when we're discussing.
Prabhuji, we can only see the first picture. We couldn't see the second.
Okay. I can't see the second one. We'll get rid of this. Can you see this? Ooh.
We can see your screen.
Okay, let's try that again. Can you see this? Maybe I stopped sharing actually. Let's try again. Sorry about that. Coming.
Okay,
This is the second picture then. I hope everyone can see. Everyone can see now?
yes, now we can.
Birds in the tree?
There are two birds. And
Two birds, yeah. So you see from the foliage that it's a tree. So this is described in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad as the situation in the body. The tree is the body. It's the field of enjoyment for the living entity. And within that tree, there are two personalities are situated. One is the spirit soul, who's trying to enjoy the fruits of his activities in the tree. And the plenary expansion of Krishna as the super soul is simply watching his friend. We'll come back to this point, actually. This is a pretty amazing situation. Now, our sage, actually, let's get rid of this one. Let's bring our learned sage back again. Okay, let's kill this one and let's bring this one. No, it's not doing what I want for some. Oh yeah, this one. So this is what a humble sage can actually see with his vision. Actually, if you want to be technical, there should be a spirit soul in this tree as well, and even in this banana tree, and in this shrub here, there should be a spirit soul as well and a super soul. Because in every living entity, that's the case. So this is when a practitioner, a yogi, has come to the stage of practicing activities and not being attached to the fruit. Actually, this is the platform they come to. This is their vision. This is the platform they come to. And what they're seeing, actually, because the super soul in the heart of every living entity is the overseer and the permitter of activities of all the different living entities, overseer and permitter. In other words, that Krishna is there in the heart of every living entity, even in the plants and animals and fishes. Krishna is there in the heart of every living entity, and every living entity has his karma. Every living entity has his desires he wants to fulfill. So one who's practiced this renounced work can see all this happening, that the super soul is there in every heart, and it is allowing the living entities by overseeing and permitting to get their desires. And this is the section that we discussed last before. I didn't get a verse from this section, but it's the section from 13 to 16. Those verses are describing the three doers in perspective, because there are three doers in the situation that we are in. We're a doer, the material nature, the three modes is a doer, and Krishna is also a doer. So the understanding of how these three doers interact is very important to come to this vision that a learned sage, that a humble learned sage has. This is the platform he's come to. So to understand that, actually, this learned sage can see this going on, that every living entity actually has their desires, and the super soul is sitting in the heart and is sanctioning and allowing those desires to take place. And they take place through the material modes of nature. Material modes of nature, but in one sense they are inert. Because Krishna says in the 3rd chapter that one who thinks he's the doer of activities is actually an illusion, because it's the 3 modes of nature which are doing it. So there are three doers are there. And Krishna is saying in those 3 doers that I don't take responsibility for the pious and sinful activities of the living entities. So how does it work? This is very important to understand, because this is the vision of the sage that we're talking about in verse 18. This is the vision that they have. And they understand in the following way, that in every living entity's heart, there is the living entity and there is the super soul. And the living entity has his desires, his or her desires, what they want to do. And those desires are actually enacted by the 3 modes of nature. We don't actually have the power to do that. And those 3 modes of nature are only acting and allowing those living entities' desires to take place because of the overseeing and the sanctioning of the Supreme Personality Godhead in his form as the super soul. So this is the 3 doers in perspective. We are actually responsible for those activities because it's our desire which causes them to happen. So one of our great acharyas, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, has given an example to help us understand how this works. He says, imagine that one man and his son, they go to the marketplace. And in the marketplace, there are big sacks of grain like that. They may be made 25 or 50 kilograms or whatever. And the child is coming to the grain merchant and he's thinking that just see how wonderful I am. I am going to lift this bag of grain. Now the father is watching his son and he knows that the son can't possibly lift the bag of grain. It's simply too heavy. He won't be able to do that. So when the son goes to lift the bag of grain, unseen by his son, the father actually lifts the bag of grain. And the son is thinking, just see how strong I am, what I have done. So this is the relationship. In this analogy, the grain is the modes of material nature, which is the thing which we want to enact. And the desire of the son is there. But the father is allowing that desire to take place by actually performing the activity. So this is how that relationship of supersoul, living entity, and modes of material nature are going on. So this personality is described here as the humble sage can see this happening everywhere. And he knows that that supersoul is impartial to everyone. Actually, we'll come back to this point in a little while. Impartial to everyone and is allowing all these things to take place. So this is some context of the verse we're studying. How is it that this personality is seeing like this? And the answer is he's come to a very pure platform, actually, where he comes into contact with the supersoul. And by fixing on the supersoul, he can actually come to the platform of liberation. So we've made through that discussion in these verses from 17 to 26. And then later we'll see the same thing can be achieved through meditation. Like that. That's coming in chapter 6. So this is some context. So this seeing of our sage here is based on this understanding that he is attained through renounced work, understanding that actually Krishna is the sanctioner, the 3 modes of nature are performing the activity, and the living entities are desiring. And that is actually what's going on. Okay, so I want to come to the purport now, because the purport actually has different things in it, and there's some very, very nice points. This is why I want to take the purport little by little and bring out the points that Srila Prabhupada is making. So you can read along with me, and then I'll stop at certain points and we can discuss the purport in some detail. So I'm reading from the purport. A Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. Actually, it's interesting what we've got in this verse. We have, first of all, a Brahmana, and then at the end of the verse, we have a dog eater. An outcast. No? So the dog eater is not considered to be a very elevated person in Vedic culture. They're called chandalas, actually, and they're actually considered to be pretty much the lowest human beings in society. And you can understand that because in Vedic culture, no one eats dogs. People don't eat dogs. But this class of men called the chandalas, the lowest in society, actually in Vedic society, if you don't want to follow the rules and regulations, you have to go to the forest and live there. There were people who ate meat in the Vedic culture, but they weren't allowed to stay in civilized society. They had to go to the forest. So these Chandalas are like that. They're the lowest people in Vedic culture. And conversely, the Brahmana, actually the Brahmins represent the head of society. They give the guidance. So the Brahmana is the highest person in Vedic society and the Chandala is the lowest. But the humble sage is seeing they're the same. It's just that some dress is there. The living entity is there and the super soul is there, but the dress is different. And also the desires of these two human beings is also very different. You see what the Brahman is doing in his picture, in his activity, no? Of course, I don't know if they had printed books in those days. But anyway, they probably had palm leaves in those days. But you see, he's studying the scripture. Yeah? He's in the mode of goodness, actually. This personality over here, the dog eater, actually, the outcast, he's actually in the mode of ignorance. So the bodily dress is different, but the humble sage sees equally that the super soul is there and the living entity is there, and the super soul is sanctioning the living entity's activities. In the case of the Brahmana, his activity is to study the scripture. In the case of the Chandala, his activity may be all kinds of unmentionable things. But the super soul is allowing because of their karma and their desires, like that. So then also, if we look at the animals which are described in this verse, we have a similar situation. You see, the cow actually is considered mother. You know, we're the only species of life which continues to take milk after the mother stops giving. And also by Krishna's arrangement, what the cow gives is so amazing, actually, that it's described in the scripture as liquid religion. It's described as liquid religion. Because by drinking milk, actually, we develop fine brain tissue and we can understand spiritual subject matter. So the cow is a very amazing personality, actually. She's one of 7 mothers, actually. In Vedic culture, it's considered there are 7 mothers. Our own mother is the first, you know, our birth mother. Then there is the wet nurse. Sometimes a wet nurse is required. Mother maybe can't give milk, so wet nurse is also a mother. The cow is mother because she gives milk after the mother stops giving. Then the wife of the king is the mother, the wife of the Brahmin is the mother, and Mother Earth. So these are the 7 mothers that we find in Vedic culture. So the cow, from the point of view of species of life, she's in a very elevated position. She's our mother. You can understand how dear the cows are to Krishna because his planet is named after them. Goloka, the planet of the cows. Actually, we were just listening to a clip by His Holiness Bhakti Swami. He was saying that the cows are Krishna's pets. And you know how well we take care of our pets, no? So the cows are she's a very elevated person among the species of the animals. So she's topmost. And then also the elephant is also greatly revered. In many temples in India, actually, the deity is carried around the temple in circumambulation by an elephant. In many temples that goes on, actually. And also, I don't know if you know, but in Vedic cosmology, the plane of Bhumandala is supported by 4 elephants because it's considered to be a very powerful creature. So in the animal kingdom, among species of life, actually in the animal kingdom, the cow and the elephant are considered to be on a very high platform also. The cow because she's our mother, and the elephant because very useful creature, very revered creature in human society. But at the same time, the dog is a little bit different. Of course, in the West, the dog has acquired an interesting position, actually. The dog has become a very revered creature who lives at home and under luxurious circumstances, watches the television, sits in the master's seat, has very nice things to eat. But if you go to India, the dog is not like that, actually. You see, the dogs are very beat up in India. You know, people throw rocks at them to chase them away. They fight with other dogs. They got battle scars. Like they fight with each other over scraps of food. They're very mangy creatures. They're not considered a very elevated creature in the species of life. So in this verse, we have dealt with human beings on the top and the bottom of society, and also animals on the top and on the bottom of society. So that's deliberate on Krishna's part, actually. He wants to show us that no matter what the situation of the living entity, according to his past life karma, Krishna is impartial to all of them, actually sits in their heart and goes with them whatever species of life they go into. Whatever species, Krishna is there. So that's a friend. That's a special friend. We'll come back to that a little later. So this is the vision of the sage who has come to the platform of seeing the supersoul everywhere, in every living entity, and knows that in order to achieve liberation, he must focus on the supersoul. Actually, that is the part of this chapter that we're really looking at. Liberation through focusing on the supersoul. So it's a nice picture. So this is just the first sentence. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view. We just explained that. No, one's at the top and the other's at the bottom of society. Or a dog, cow, and elephant may be different from the point of view of different species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of the learned transcendentalist, because he knows it's just a body, it's just a covering. You know, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking to Rupa Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says the very famous verse there, he says, Brahmanda Brahmite, Kaun Bhagavanji. Brahmanda Brahmite. It means that the living entities, the Brahmite, and they're going round and round in the universe. Sometimes they're human beings, sometimes they're a demigod, sometimes they're an animal species. You know, we've all been in different species of life, lots of times actually. So that is actually what's going on in the universe. But Krishna is always there. Whatever place you go and whatever your desires are, whatever your karma is, Krishna is always there with you, sanctioning your activities, in every single case. So this is how our learned sage is seeing. He's seeing this actually in front of me, realizing. So the bodily designation doesn't mean anything, because you're a dog now, but in the next lifetime you might be a cat, or you're a Brahmana now, next lifetime you might be a Kshatriya. So all these bodily designations are there, are constantly changing, but the one constant or the two constants are the soul and the super soul in every situation. So we have one very nice sannyasi in our movement. He's called Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj, and he coined this phrase. He said, actually, we're all identical twins. In identical twins, they're so much alike, you can't tell them apart. So similarly, the super soul in every heart and the living entity in every heart, you can't tell them apart, because they're all the same, actually, from Krishna's point of view. Krishna is impartial. He says, Samahang Sarvabhuteshu. I'm equal to all living entities. So this is what this learned sage is seeing. He's seeing that in front of his eyes, actually. Krishna is impartial. Krishna is sanctioning the activities of all living entities. So I read on then. This is meaningless from the viewpoint of the learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. They're in communion with the Supreme, in communion with the Supersoul, and therefore they see that everybody else is in that situation as well, according to their understanding. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme, for the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. Yeah, real knowledge to understand that Krishna is impartial, actually. I quoted that verse, no? Samahang Sarvabhuteshu, Krishna is saying, I'm equal. Sama means equal. Samahang, I am equal to all living entities. Krishna is impartial. He doesn't favor anyone over anyone else. He doesn't hate anyone, and no one is very dear to him. He's the same to everybody. So the super soul is there in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge, not the outward dress, actually. And when we get to 18th chapter, you'll see that as well. Krishna is saying in 18th chapter that knowledge in the mode of goodness is to understand that the same undissociated Brahman is everywhere. That the spirit souls are everywhere, and the Paramatma is everywhere, wherever those spirit souls are. And wherever you look, that's what you see. It's actually all the Brahman. It's all the same in the sense that every living entity is equal in Krishna's eyes, and the Paramatma is there looking after them. So this is the vision of such a person. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone, because he treats every living entity as being a friend, and yet maintains himself as the Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. So I don't know if you know, but there are different grades of friendship, actually. In English, there's only one word. You say somebody's your friend. But even within that, we know there are different grades of friendship. We can divide it. This is my good friend, this is my close friend. But in Sanskrit is a very rich language, and therefore the different words are used. So the main three words that are used are bandhu, Mitra, and Surit. So Krishna is described as the supersoul in the heart. He's described as Surit. He's a very dear friend, actually. He's so dear, we don't really have friends like this. But a friend of this quality, a Surit, actually is he's so dear. His friend is so dear to him that he only wants the benefit for that friend. And he doesn't want anything for himself. He just wants to see that that personality gets the best of everything. But he doesn't want anything in return for that. So that is Krishna as the supersoul, actually. Because in one sense, it's not really necessary for the supersoul to be there in the heart. Because there are other kinds of witnesses, actually. According to Mahabharata, there are 14 different witnesses. So the supersoul doesn't need to be in the heart to be witness. There are many other witnesses. So the question arises then, why is the supersoul in the heart? And the answer is because he's Surit. He's dear friend to the living entity, the dearmost friend, actually, because he only wants the best for that living entity. He's allowing him to enact his activities. But the supersoul is always waiting for the opportunity to get that spirit soul to turn towards him. So he can take that spirit soul back to Godhead. Because the Paramatma is not there in the spiritual world. Paramatma is material world, plenary expansion of Krishna, only for the purpose of bringing that friend back to Godhead. So we don't have friends like that in the material world, actually. So Krishna is described as Surit. He's the dearmost friend of the living entity. Actually, you can describe it like that. No one has a friend like that apart from Krishna, actually. Then there are these other friends. Like Bandhu, for instance, it's a term of friendship, but it's like a relative. A Bandhu is someone who, it's a kind of formal relationship. It's a formal friendship. You know, you're a well-wisher towards that personality if it's a Bandhu friendship, but at the same time, there's not really a close connection. You're kind of a well-wisher, but not much goes on. It's a formal friendship. And then also there's Mitra. Now, Mitra is a bit more than a formal friendship. It's a social friendship. You know, there may be some exchange. There may be some understanding there. You could say there's affection and there's the desire to be a benefactor like that. But it's often on the basis of an exchange. You know, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. But Krishna's not like that. Krishna is the Surit in the heart. He's the dearmost friend of the living entity. He only thinking about the welfare of that particular spirit soul. So this is Krishna. So our learned sage can see that. He can see that all going on. Actually, that Krishna is waiting, you know, he's first of all sanctioning all the activities of that living entity according to his desires and his karma. And he's also waiting for that living entity to turn towards him. So this is what the sage can see. He sees all that going on. Actually, in the body, he doesn't really see that so much, actually, because the body is just an outward dress. Okay, where do we get to? He treats living entity as a friend and yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entity. And you see that here. Actually, in this picture we've got displaying, if you want to be strict, there should be supersoul in the trees and the shrub by the Brahmana. And the shrub there, which is underneath the picture of the Chandala. Because the supersoul is there even in species of life which are non-moving. Wherever there's spirit soul, there is also supersoul. So it's a bit like this, you know, let's say, I don't know how quickly you get speeding tickets in your country, wherever you are, but let's say you get arrested by the police, you know, and they take you to jail because you've been speeding like that. Could you ring up any of your friends and ask them, listen, I'm going to jail now because the police have captured me. Will you kindly come with me? Do you have any friends like that who will come with you to jail? Probably not, no? But whatever species of life we go into, Krishna goes there with us, actually, whatever species of life. And whatever we experience, Krishna also experiences with us. And he never lets go of us, actually. Always maintains himself as the Paramatma in the heart of every living entity. Why? Because he's the Surit. He's the dearmost well-wisher of every living entity. But Krishna doesn't get anything out of that. It's a completely selfless friendship on Krishna's part. You know, it's said that if we could understand how much Krishna wants us to return to the spiritual world, we'd be shocked, actually, much more than we want to go. And the evidence of that is that Krishna is there in the heart as the supersoul. Wherever you go, Krishna goes with you as the super soul. So this is why Prabhupada's saying here, he treats every living entity as a friend, a surit, topmost, dearmost, well-wishing friend of the living entity, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances. You know, I mean, you think Krishna likes to be in the body of a dog as the super soul? Krishna's actually there because of the living entity. He's indifferent actually to the body. He's going because of the living entity. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and the Brahmana, although the body of a Brahmana and that of an outcast is not the same. One is in the mode of ignorance, one is in the mode of goodness. The body is not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature. You know, it's like a painting palette describes it, Prabhupada describes it like that. In painting, there are three colors. They're called the primary colors. They are yellow, red, and blue. And from these three colors you can make, you know, it's said that the eye can discriminate about 16 million different colors. It's so sensitive, it can do that. So they're made by mixing these three different colors. A little bit of this one, more of that one, less of that one. That's how you make them. So similarly, the bodies are made by mixing the modes in different proportions. And my particular collection of modes is not quite the same as yours, just in the same way that two colors are not exactly the same. But the soul and the supersoul and the body are the same spiritual quality. You know, they're the same spiritual quality, but they're different in quantity. You know, there are that class of philosophers that say, you know, we're the Brahman, and if we become liberated from this material nature, we'll again become Brahman, we'll merge with the Brahman. But Krishna is saying in the second chapter, we're eternally individual. But there's a difference, we're the same in quality, but we're different in quantity. So Prabhupada's going to make that point now. The similarity in the quality of the soul and, the similarity in the quality of the soul and the super soul, however, does not make them equal in quantity. We are made of spiritual substance, but we are different in quantity. We are described as anu, that is the Sanskrit word. It literally means atomic. But the super soul, Krishna's plenary expansion super soul is vibhu. Vibhu means opulence without limit, actually. So this is the difference. This is our philosophy. The philosophy Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching is a Chinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, that there is inconceivable simultaneous one and difference between the living entity, actually between Krishna and everything in Krishna's cosmic manifestation. Krishna is one with, simultaneously, inconceivably one with and different from everything, actually. That is our philosophy. So in that philosophy, as spirit souls, we are very tiny, insignificant, just a spark. And Krishna is like the bonfire. So that is the difference. Although they're both there in the heart, there's a vast difference. This is the point Prabhupada's making. The similarity in the quantity of the soul and the super soul, however, does not make them equal in quantity. For the individual soul is present only in that particular body. One body, one spirit soul. But innumerable bodies, and Krishna is there in every one of them as the Paramatma. Whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this. You can see that. That's what our learned sage is seeing here. And therefore, the soul and the super soul, a Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. That's based on knowledge. It's not some intellectual jiggery-pokery. It's based on transcendental knowledge, which has been revealed in the heart. You can actually see that going on. The similar characteristics of the soul and super soul, that they're both conscious. You know, there's that verse from the, I'm remembering the verse, I'm not remembering where it's from. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam. I'm forgetting now where that's from. One of the Upanishads, I think that's from. There's the one conscious, and there are the many conscious. Actually, it starts with eternal. Nityo nityanam. There is the one eternal, and there are the many eternals. And there's also the one conscious, and there are the many conscious. But the difference is that the one is taking care and fulfilling all the needs of the many. So that is the difference. We are small, insignificant spirit soul, and Krishna is without limit. You know? So this point has to be very nicely understood, and Prabhupada is explaining it here very nicely. The similar characteristics of the soul and the super soul, they're both conscious, eternal, and blissful. We're all made of that nature. What is that verse from the Anandamoy Sat from the Vedanta Sutra, that anything which is spiritual in nature, which is conscious, is by nature full of bliss. That is what that aphorism from the Vedanta Sutra is saying. We are eternal, we are full of knowledge and full of bliss. Anything spiritual is like that, Anandamoy Sat. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body. That is the field of activities, like we saw that in the picture with the two birds. The consciousness of the living entity is absorbed in the body and the things related to the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all the bodies. The supersoul present in all bodies without distinction. So this is Prabhupada's purport, very nicely explaining how this whole thing comes about. So in this way, we have discussed the meaning of this verse in the context, how the vision of this personality comes about. That is because this personality, this sage, has practiced renounced work to the point where he's become elevated to the point of seeing everything with true knowledge. Because by working as in a spirit of sacrifice, we attain transcendental knowledge. And therefore we can see the Supreme, Krishna, the living entity, the Jiva, and the Prakriti, and we understand the proper relationship between them. What is the exact relationship? True knowledge. And therefore he can see all these things going on. And he knows actually, this personality knows that if I focus on the supersoul, if I become absorbed in the supersoul, then actually I will come to the platform of liberation. So that is this section. We're discussing these two verses are from that section, from 17 to 26. And you see as the classes go on, you see more and more is explained about this vision, about this desire to focus on the supersoul and what it produces, and ultimately produces liberation. So anyway, I'm stopping 15 minutes before the end, and I'm hoping there'll be comment and question and realization. Maybe I'm going to stop sharing now. And I'll see you all again. Well, I don't see many of you because most of you have got your video switched off. I'm going to look on there's nothing on the chat, which is a little disappointing. So I'm hoping that there will be comment, question, or realization. Okay. You see, we need to develop this vision as well. We need to develop this vision that actually, not in the mode of passion. You know, I quoted that verse from 1820. Now, the vision of the mode of goodness is to see the same undissociated Brahman everywhere. Same spirit soul, the same super soul. But the vision of the mode of passion, rather, is different kind of body, different kind of living entity. So we have to develop this vision, like this learned sage, you know, and also learn that equanimity in dealing with other living entities. The Krishna is busy with every living entity, you know, and we must respect that, you know, and we must be respectful. Like that's our one of our very important verses which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given. You know, Tranada Pisna Chena, Tarorvasishnana, Amanina Manadena, Kirtanya Sadahari. But, you know, we have to understand actually that the supersoul is there in every living entity. And supersoul is engaged with that living entity, you know, fulfilling their desires at the same trying to allow them to turn towards him, to encourage them to turn towards him. So therefore we should be respectful to every living entity, understanding that Krishna is busy with them. And we shouldn't unnecessarily mess around with that process. So this is a very good verse for us to meditate on, actually, that equanimity of vision. I'm wondering if there's comment or question.
Prabhuji, there are questions coming up, but I can ask a question till everybody writes their questions.
Okay, all right.
So in the picture of the two birds, the soul was depicted as an old man.
Yeah.
and the super soul was nice. We know of, because that is Krishna and he's always youthful and young. But the soul is depicted as an old man. So that is one question. And another question is, you might have said it, but I didn't understand it. So the soul is, I thought the soul was unique. So everybody's soul has different karmas that they are taking up from previous birth. They have a different journey. So I thought the soul was unique to everybody and not the same. Did I get it wrong, Prabhuji?
Okay, let's deal with the old man first. Actually, it's interesting you've seen it in that way. I see it in a slightly different way. See, because there is a very famous character from folklore in the West who is famous for being, what you could say, very selfish and envious. So that personality is called Scrooge.
Yes, Christmas.
The story of the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. So that personality is very concerned with his own things. Krishna describes him in Bhagavad Gita as a miser, actually. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their labor are misers. So for me, that's why this personality is shown like this. He's very meager and miserly and concerned with his own things. Because actually we know that the spirit soul is not touched by material things at all. So for me, I saw it in that way. That the entity here, this consciousness is focused on the body and his own things. That's why he's shown here as an old Scrooge type character. That's the way I see it. Is that right?
Yes, Prabhuji. And he looks miserly.
Okay, the second question you see is because the spirit souls are pretty much the same in the sense that they are units of consciousness which Krishna has produced. And they are basically, although they have their unique relationship with Krishna, they're all seen equally by the Supreme Lord. It's not that one is better than another. So in that sense, from Krishna's viewpoint, they're actually all on an equal platform. They're all the same in Krishna's eyes. But it's also simultaneously true, it is said that each living entity, each spirit soul has a unique relationship with Krishna. And there is something in that relationship that every spirit soul has with Krishna, which is only attainable through the relationship Krishna has with that specific spirit soul. So both things are there. The spirit soul is unique, but they're all equal in Krishna's eyes. It's not that one spirit soul is better than another. Is that all right, Kirtika?
Yes, Prabhuji. Now it makes sense. Prabhuji, Avinash Prabhuji has a question to ask, and he can unmute and ask his question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. A question I have, I think is probably more related to what Mataji has said, but I just wanted to explore further. Is to do with Sankshana, Paramatma, who is the Sankshana, and the soul. And then we've got Prakriti in between. So when we get another body, we take some of the modes with us, or one of the three modes with us. Now we may have a desire to serve the Lord, or we have a desire to serve, but we have got previous desires as well from our previous karmas.
Sure.
Now, how does this work? Although somebody is wishing that they should be serving the Lord constantly, but the desires from the previous karma, they still occur. So I just wanted to further explore on that sort of idea.
Okay, it's a very nice question, Avinash. Thank you very much. You see, one thing is that one thing we should understand principally about this is Krishna says himself that a little activity in this way, one who performs a little of this activity, it never diminishes. No, there's no loss or diminution, Krishna says, and a little advancement on this path can save one from the most dangerous type of fear. So it's the first thing to understand. If we perform some devotional service, we will get the next birth in such a way that we can pick up from where we left off. And it's true, we may have unfulfilled material desires. So that is called Mishra Bhakti. That means our devotional service is mixed with other desires. It's either Kama Mishra Bhakti, we want to enjoy in the material nature, Yoga Mishra Bhakti, we want mystic cities, or Jnana Mishra Bhakti, we have a desire for knowledge or liberation. So these things we may not be pure. And these different material desires may go with us, and it may be mixed into our devotional service. But our devotional service will never reduce. No, Krishna will give opportunity in the next birth. So the idea is we should work to reduce the mixture, the mishra, the other desires, and we do that by the performance of devotional service. If we perform devotional service gradually, and we do it properly, we follow the process properly, gradually those mishra bhaktis, that mixture of other things will gradually diminish, actually, and in the end it will disappear. And largely they disappear at the stage of nishta. Rupa Goswami has described that there are 9 stages in the development of bhakti. Begins with Shraddha, and then it goes to Sadasanga, and then Bhajana Kriya, then Anartha Nivritti, then Nishta. So largely, these material desires are beginning to seriously disappear by the stage of Nishta, when we're fixed in our devotional service and we don't get deviated. But it may take some time, either in this lifetime or over a few lifetimes, to develop to the point where those, you could say, unwanted things, the things that are removed in Anartha Nivritti, it takes time for them to go down. So we may get bothered by those things. And during that phase, actually, then our devotional service is described as anishtita. It means it's not steady. And Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has analyzed that in some detail. So the idea is then that those material desires may go with us, but if we perform the devotional service properly, they will gradually diminish and eventually disappear. Is that all right?
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to explore even further to say, how does actually the mercy work in this sort of situation? And also the other thing is, when people get initiated, they say the guru actually takes the scenes of the person. Does it make the all previous karma are completely abolished?
Okay, let's deal with that one first. You see, if we're 100% surrendered, then our sinful reactions will disappear 100%. If we're 10% surrendered, then it'll disappear 10%. So it's to do with the surrender of the disciple to the spiritual master, to the extent that those things will disappear. And initiation, after all, means beginning. To initiate means to start. So when we become initiated, it's like a formal acceptance of the situation, and we begin to render devotional service in a serious way. So in many cases, we won't expect to see that disciples are 100% surrendered to their guru. So therefore, some things will remain. The parabdha karma, the things which are manifest will remain. Because we're generally not 100% surrendered to the spiritual master. That's the last thing you were asking. But just refresh my memory, what the other thing was.
The other one about how the mercy plays the part.
Mercy.
That
you
was
see,
the first.
Again, actually, this time of the year is a nice example of how the mercy works. We're singing Damodar Ashtaka at the moment. Now, when Mother Yashoda was binding Lord Krishna, she kept finding that the rope was 2 fingers short. No matter how much rope she tied to the end of the rope, she kept going, but it was always 2 fingers short. So the acharyas have explained that these 2 fingers represent 2 things. One is the endeavor of the devotee, and the other is the mercy of Krishna, because we cannot become Krishna conscious on our own. Krishna actually does that for us. Krishna allows his mercy to flow to us when he sees that our endeavor is sincere. So the endeavor must be there on the part of the aspiring devotee, and Krishna's mercy must be there. So the more we are sincere in our endeavor, the more mercy we'll get, and the more quickly we'll become purified. And we see that in seed verses of Bhagavad Gita. In 10:10, Krishna says, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So Krishna helps us. But the thing is, it must be on the basis of our endeavor. If we do nothing, Krishna will just wait. But if we endeavor, then the mercy will flow in different ways. Avinash, is this all right?
Yes, thank you. My wife, Vishaka Mataji, has got a question. So I don't know whether you've got time to get the question or not.
I always got time to ask questions, provided our facilitator will allow it.
Yes, Prabhuji. Before Vishaka Mataji, Pranhari Das Prabhuji has raised his hand since a long time.
Okay.
So
can we come
after him,
back to
Vishaka
Vishaka's question?
Mataji. Yes, Prabhuji. Pranhari Das Prabhuji, can you ask your question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for a nice lecture. And my question is basically like you have mentioned that the Lord comes, he's eager to take us back to the God, back home to Godhead. But my question is here is basically that why don't we see the Lord's effort? You know, what is wrong, and we trying so much hard, but we don't see that effort. What is wrong in us? So, and how can we improve it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Very nice question. Pranhari, thank you. Such a nice question. You see, the problem is that even though we're aspiring devotees, actually there is one, I'm staying in South Africa in Cape Town. There is one of our sannyasis here expresses this so nicely. He said, you know, we have both feet in the material world, but we're looking towards the spiritual world. Even though we're aspiring devotees, actually, our consciousness most of the time is flowing through the body. You know, our consciousness is in the material. We're attached to so many things. And this is why we have a hard time seeing the activity of the super soul. And then also the super soul actually doesn't really start up conversation with us until we become substantially pure. Because that is Krishna only responds to love, you know. So we have to become substantially pure before Krishna will actually talk to us as the super soul. So therefore he sends the spiritual master in the beginning, because the spiritual master is on a platform where he can relate to us. But when we become advanced, actually, then the spiritual master appears in the heart as the super soul, because the super soul and the spiritual master are non-different in one sense. The spiritual master is the external representative of the super soul. So because we're materially attached in so many ways, because our consciousness flows through the body mostly, and therefore Krishna sends the spiritual master. But as we become purified, more and more, we will be able to hear the voice of the super soul and even see, you know, the presence of the super soul. So it's a question of our consciousness. You know, where is our consciousness flowing actually? And we can look into our hearts and we can see that. Where is your consciousness? You know, I'm such and such a das, and I've got my tilak on, and I'm, you know, my coach, my neck beads and everything. But where is my consciousness most of the time actually? You know, am I Krishna conscious, or am I conscious of other things? So this is the problem we have, that we're very much in bodily consciousness, even though we're practicing devotee. So this is why we find it difficult to see and hear the super soul, because of our consciousness. Is that all right, Pranahari Prabhu?
Yeah, that's very nice answer. Thank you very much. Thank you for a nice answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I think Vishaka Mataji has a question. Mataji, kindly unmute.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I don't know whether it would be really one, but coming to like what worries me, like as we said, no matter how much we try devotional, we are aware that we should be spiritual. Sometimes or many times our mind wavers. Yeah, my worry is, okay, we endeavor in this life, but God forbid our life ends, and then we are born again in next life. How are we to continue? Because even in this life we have chanted all day. When we get up next morning, the mind is just all over. It takes a while before it settles down. Now when we die, then we are completely like sort of in the sleep mode before we get another body. Now how are we meant to be connected? My worry is, wouldn't we do bad karmas and again fall back? That's my question. How do we resolve that?
Okay, it's a very nice question, Vishaka Mataji. Thank you very much. It's a very nice question. Many devotees are concerned with this subject matter. You know, what will happen to me? Will Krishna remember my activities? You see, because we were talking that Krishna is the surit of the living entity, very dear friend, no? Will go to any lengths to help the living entity, even go with him into every species of life. And Krishna shows us in Bhagavad Gita, actually, you can study these two verses when we go offline. There's 641 and 642 from the 6th chapter. No? You see, Krishna wants us to come back to Godhead very much, and therefore will preserve whatever we have. Actually, Krishna says that in 9th chapter. Yoga Shemam Vaham Yaham. I preserve what the devotee has, and I carry what the devotee lacks. So Krishna will remember, where we've got to in our spiritual life, in this life. This is one aspect. I want to answer it in a different way in a minute. And then the situation we'll be born into. Krishna says, first of all, if you're unsuccessful after short practice, first you go to the planets of the pious living entities and you enjoy for a long time. Then you're born into a family of rich aristocracy or, a righteous family, so that you can revive the consciousness from the previous lifetime and continue where you left off. Because if you're born into those families and the material nature doesn't act on you so strongly, the idea being that you will pick up where you left off. Krishna will arrange that birth. But if if you are unsuccessful after long practice, then you go straight into a family of transcendentalists. And there the consciousness is revived very quickly, and you pick up where you left off. And Krishna, I quoted that verse to Avinash as well. That Krishna is saying that in this endeavor there is no loss and diminution, and even a little advancement on this path can save one from the most dangerous type of fear. So Krishna is assuring us, whatever advance you make, I will keep that, and I will give it back to him. And that purport Prabhupada says, actually, if you're 1% Krishna conscious, in the next lifetime you start from 2%. Nothing is ever lost. So we shouldn't worry, actually. We should endeavor the best we can, how much we can, however we can, take the help of the devotees around us as much as possible advance. But we should know that Krishna is looking out for us. We'll remember everything done. Krishna will give us a birth where we can pick up where we left off. And you see that. Actually, I've been associating with devotees for more than 30 years, and I see that. Sometimes you see someone joins the movement, and very quickly they speed through different levels, and they come to a point, and then it becomes a little bit, they have to work a bit to make further advancement. So when you see that, you can understand that devotee has this life and is now coming again, very quickly advance, and then they come to the point where they got to in the last life, and then they have to start working and following the process carefully. So you can understand from this that Krishna will take care of you, Mother Vishaka. We hope that you become a pure devotee in this lifetime and go back to Godhead. But if not, Krishna will take very good care of you and arrange everything for your further advancement. Is that all right? Mother
Yeah,
Vishaka?
thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Kumar Prabhuji had a question on the spirit, soul, and the super soul. That is Shashwin. Prabhuji, ask your question.
So, Prabhuji, please more light on soul, spirit soul, and super soul.
Yes.
I need more explanation.
Okay, because it's a vast subject matter, so you have to help me a little bit where to zero in. Because we could talk for several weeks on this subject matter of the soul and the super soul. So what have you got in your mind? Give me some idea so that I can focus a little bit, focus the question. What have you got in your mind? Because I can see it, soul, spirit, soul, super soul, more light on it. But that is a vast subject matter.
What is the difference, the soul and spirit soul?
Okay, let me reiterate some of the things we've said. You see, we could say that the soul has come to this realm in order to enjoy separately from Krishna. But actually, the soul cannot influence the material nature. So the super soul is doing that. The super soul is there so that we can enact our desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. At the same time, Krishna doesn't really want that. Krishna wants to enjoy with you, actually, in the spiritual realm. And therefore, Krishna is always working on us to try to turn our consciousness around. Stop pushing your consciousness through the body. Don't let your consciousness flow through the body, but let your consciousness flow to me. So this is the relationship between the soul and the super soul. And Krishna loves each soul so much that he never gives up on that activity of trying to turn the spirit soul towards him. No matter where you go or what you do or what species of life you enter, Krishna is always there waiting for you. So, Kumar, when are you going to turn towards me? Turn towards me. That's what the super soul is constantly telling us. But most of the time, our consciousness flows in material through the body, so we don't hear that voice. So then Krishna sends the devotees, and you're minding your own business walking down the street, and one of these devotees gives you a book and says, please, Kumar, give me a donation. And then we associate with the devotees a little bit, and the super soul is through another devotee is giving you a bit of information to help your spiritual life grow. So this is the relationship between the individual soul and the super soul, how the super soul is always trying to guide us and bring us back to Krishna's lotus feet. Anyway. Yeah, like a passenger and a driver in a car. Prem is just reading the analogy. Actually, we are like the driver of the car. Sorry, we're the passenger in the car, and the super soul is the one who's driving the car. And we're busy looking out the window, trying to enjoy everything. And we're not seeing that the super soul is there as the one who's driving the car. So we have to learn to see like that Krishna is doing everything for us, but we're thinking we're completely independent. Anyway, these are some things to think about, Kumar. Is that okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very good explanation. Very good example.
Actually, somebody's written on the chat. It says S. Kinoti has written. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you so much. This is one sloka to meditate on. Yes, there's a very nice sloka to meditate on. It's also one of the Bhakti Shastri verses. It's a nice verse to learn. So it's a very nice verse to meditate on. The vision of one who's really is Krishna conscious, can see every living entity, and an equal platform, and see the super soul is there with them. It's a very nice verse to meditate on. Thank you for that comment. Okay, I think we're done, Kirtika, isn't it? No more questions, yeah?
There are no more questions, but I'd like to make an announcement that Prabhuji will be with us next week, next Sunday. So devotees kindly join next Sunday. And this reflective reading we carry out every day at the same time on the same link. So we'll really appreciate your association if you can join in every day. Thank you very much, everybody who joined today.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
I'll hand over to Path Prabhuji now. Path Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your wonderful session and for precious time and giving the very nice shloka in this chapter, Vidya Vinayam. It's very, very nice, and many people also, Prabhupada and other Maharaj also giving very nice lectures on it. It's a very famous shloka.
Yeah,
so, yes, Prabhu. We are so appreciate and we're so grateful to you for your precious time and wonderful lecture. On behalf of ISKCON Eldorate and all the devotees joined here, we thanks to you, we show gratitude to you for glorification of His Grace Shyamanand Krishna Prabhu and other devotees joined here. Please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra once. Hare Krishna, please. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Rama, Hare Hare.
Pancha kalpatarubhyasya
Kripa sindhubhya eva cha pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare
Krishna. Thank
you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. We have a YouTube link as well. So all the lectures are uploaded on that. I'll share with you the YouTube link, Vishakha Mataji and Avinash.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji.
We have Pranali Vyas on the group. I'd just like to know, is she from London? Pranali Vyas?
Haribol Mataji, I'm from Nairobi.
Okay. Welcome to this group and kindly join us every day at the same time. That is 8 o'clock Nairobi time, 5 o'clock UK time, if you are able to. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm ending the session.